All right. How's everybody doing? This is Alan. Oh, dang it. I was going to say this is Alan Seiler. I meant to change my name on the display to Alan the Seiler just because I figured if I follow Megan, maybe I'll win an award too. Who knows? But
Why can't it just be Alan the Stallion?
I thought about doing that too.
Yeah, you could do that.
But then you might get messages you don't really necessarily want or do want.
Or do I?
Yeah. Well, it depends who it is.
How badly do you need it to make it rain? How badly do you need that to happen, sir?
Not too badly. Not too badly. My rain is fine. All right. So here we are, the first outing of Alan's Music Room. And the idea was to get this started a couple of weeks ago when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announcements came out. And I hurt my stupid back. So I was laid up for literally 2 weeks, could not move, couldn't walk, none of that. So I thought with the Grammys last night, this is the ideal time to do our first one. So we will talk a little bit, actually, we'll probably talk a lot about last night's Grammy show. Some of the things that happened, some of the things that didn't happen, some of the things that should have happened, and just talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. So if you gentlemen will introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm J.M. Tuffley. I write various things around the internet, and including needcoffee.com. I contribute to the Weekend Justice podcast, and I also make stupid replies on Twitter.
Rob, who the hell are you?
Well, Tuffley needs to talk about the Radio Works thing you do too.
Oh yeah, well I do a lot of playlists on Spotify, but
yeah,
if you see the stupid comments on Twitter, there's one directly under it, so it's fine.
Okay, just making sure. Hi, hi, I'm Rob Levy. History repeats itself because, like Tuffley, I do stuff for both needcoffee.com and the Weekend Justice podcast, and I do a show called Juxtaposition on KDHX in St. Louis, and I write about music for a couple different places.
All right, so what was your general impressions of the Grammy show last night? Overall, not getting into specifics, but what did you think of the show itself?
I had really hoped that, with COVID and some people weren't going to show up and all of that maybe the thought that it might be shorter. But no,
that will never happen.
No, it was actually longer.
It was,
as I recall. And there's two schools of thoughts on that. There's the, it's not the Grammys I remember, because the Grammys had more of what I remember. And to that, I question your memory, because when I was a kid growing up, the Grammys didn't speak to me either. It was super old. Mm-hmm. The rock bands were never on, Frank Sinatra won Best Album. It's, it's never been reflective of the actual time it's occurring in. And this feels a little more current.
It does.
In a way,
it really does.
In a way that they haven't. And there are lots and lots of problems with the Grammy organization, but the last couple of years, the last 2 years in particular, it seems like they've really been trying to sort of get it right in a way that, they've still got some work to do, but I
think it may be a bit of overcompensation.
Yeah.
And I don't mind a few years of that happening.
Yeah. I mean, there's a road left to go. But it's also the thing I also like to remind folks is that, there have always been portions of the Grammy cast that are not going to be for you, and you just have to accept it.
Right.
Now, on the, when I was a kid, that was the, 20 minutes of bluegrass and opera. But I know when kids now, or old people like us now, we have to deal with the WAP performance, and that, that's here nor there. But, that's, at least you have that. We had opera and bluegrass. You have it better. Children of now, you have it better. So much better.
But do they? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Rob, what do you think?
Well, I think the big thing is to make a delineation with the Grammys between the people that vote for the Grammys and the people that put on the show.
Yeah.
Sure.
So in terms of, because I once I started looking at it through that lens, I don't get all weirded out by it. But I think that how do you put this? It was better than I expected it to be. In this year of no live music, you have a show based on live music. I think that you have to sort of set aside the weekend Grammys kerfuffle and all the different stuff going on at the Grammys aside, and you have to just sort of stop and say the one thing that has gotten all of us through, no matter what we like, during this year has probably been music in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I think they really captured that spirit of it. They did put in some social commentary stuff. They did sort of speak to the now, as we talked about. But I think that they tried to use music as like this commonality way that they've never done before, because it's always been, like Tuffley said, here's the opera over here, here's the punk bluegrass, and here's the the Thai folk ska over here. So
it's like the Wheel of Progress at Disney World.
Yeah,
it's just.
But I'm being the old guy here. The thing that I love about the Grammys is I love watching the stuff I don't normally watch, just so I can say I'm exposed to it.
Yeah.
And I love sort of like, okay, this is who this is. Like, I didn't really dive into Dua Lipa until Tuffley. So, because he's a little more pop sensible than I. So, I mean, it's interesting. And, it's interesting how it looks at the year and it does everything it's supposed to do. But they always sneak in this is coming. This is going to be the next cool thing. And they always sneak that in. And they did that too. So I think it did a lot of different things well and much better than I thought. That's the short, long answer.
I really thought it ran well. I was really surprised by how smooth everything was. I really liked the performance setup, where they had sort of like those connected stages.
Kind of the fake Jill Collins set.
Exactly. So I thought all that was great. I do think from what you were saying, Tuffley, I do think that maybe this was the Grammys used to be pretty good at representing all areas of the music industry. Even if you aren't into opera, at least there would be something there to represent that audience, and at least one award given out. This show seemed so out of balance, like not a single rock category, rock, metal, alt, anything was on the show. The closest you got to a rock performance was Haim, who I thought were great. And I did love how performance heavy this show was. But I just think that it was just a little,
well, it was Haim and Black Pumas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought they were great too. They were fantastic. Really enjoyed them. But I just feel like there was a whole, like, if you weren't a rap or soul artist, particularly a rap artist, you pretty much weren't going to get on the show, except unless you were in the in memoriam segment. And the big exception to that was the best song country award. And I think the only reason it made it onto the show is because it was all women. And that's a hugely notable thing, but otherwise there was no country category either, except for that one. So it just seemed, it seemed so skewed to a specific audience.
And it's been moving that way. I mean,
yeah, sure.
Because to be fair, the CMAs have almost just become this huge thing now.
Sure.
They don't need the Grammys, right?
Right.
And the American Music Awards are kind of like the Grammys, but they're a little more spread out in terms of what they do music wise. But yeah, I think you're right. And says the panel of three white guys. I think that I just think that I appreciate the diversity, and I appreciate them recognizing it, because the time has finally come.
Absolutely.
Right? But at the same time, and it's not about artists, it's more about styles. And I don't know how much effort they made into, well, no one's going to want to hear the Foo Fighters, or no one's going to want to hear, I would love to have seen Run the Jewels. Just saying, Run the Jewels.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best. Our friend Widget at Need Coffee wakes up in the morning, talks about Run the Jewels, does his work, drinks coffee, talks about Run the Jewels. So Run the Jewels.
That is a fair question. You on the one hand, you get okay, so they figured out a way to make WAP on national television, and people were still a little worried about that one. You're going to get to that, I know. And yet, you couldn't get body count, which, by the way, the Ice-T acceptance speech on the webcast is, for Ice-T, the cutest thing I've ever seen. People are going to think that's weird, but he brought his family up, to win the Best Metal Award. Yeah, and I thought that was really kind of endearing and nice and sweet, and that he wasn't like into the Grammy thing, but now he is.
And isn't it funny that we're in a world now where Ice wins the Best Metal Award?
Yeah,
that's just wacko, and I love
body count's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think he's kind of at home with the whole. Yeah, I've played a cop for 20 years. I'm fine with that.
Exactly. Right, it's a different world for him too.
But why you couldn't have people who won the award earlier, because I know previous casts have done that, where they've had like people who have won the award earlier. Why you can't have body count on national TV? Why you can't have Run the Jewels on national TV? But Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B and a large gigantic shoe and a stripper pole was okay.
Right. Right.
And I get it. I get it. Again, it goes back to, there's not a whole lot. I try not to get mad about these things, because it's sort of like, at a certain point, I've always been used to some portion of this show not being for me. Right.
Yeah.
So I've always grown up with that. I'm just that's why I go back to, kids, we used to have to sit through 20 minutes of bluegrass and opera, and you guys don't. So screw it. You're better. So,
but there's something to be said about exposure. Rob was talking about how he enjoys hearing and seeing things that he wouldn't normally get exposed to. And I think that goes both ways. That goes that way with opera and with bluegrass as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of bluegrass, it's really interesting that we had a new record set for number of Grammy Awards for a solo female artist. She tied the record last night, and then in the next category surpassed the record. The previous record holder was Alison Krauss.
Yep.
I think that's so interesting. We got our first comment from the audience, and if any other viewers have question or comment, just put them in the comments section and we will address them. My friend Suzanne, hi Suzanne, says, do you think the rock alt artists said no to performing, or they weren't asked at all? I honestly kind of believe they weren't asked. Well, I don't think that fit the show that they wanted to put on.
Because this kind of came out this afternoon that Wolfgang Van Halen was asked. Yes. But he was asked to do Eruption as a tribute to his dad, which is kind of awkward and weird, and I'd say no too.
Well, and it's, he has always been clear that he was not intended to. He's not going to ever perform Van Halen songs with his new band. And his dad didn't want that either. His dad wanted him to establish himself. I mean, he's been the bassist for Van Halen for like the last 10 years or whatever. He needs to establish himself. Now, what they could have done is, okay, so Wolfie, you don't want to play Eruption. Would you and your band come on and play your first single, which was a tribute to Eddie?
Yeah.
Why didn't they have that happen?
I mean, there's a ton of people they could have gotten to do.
Yeah.
In the same way they did the tribute to Marvin Gaye. They could have done a tribute to Eddie Van Halen, for example. They could have got Janelle Monáe. They could have got St. Vincent. There's a ton of people that fit within the pigeon walls that they're putting that would have done it. Right. Because the one interesting thing about Eddie Van Halen is there are kids that love punk records that love Eddie Van Halen. There's people that, love hip hop that love Eddie Van Halen. So, and if you loved Michael Jackson,
I was going to say he played with Michael Jackson. Yeah. He played with Billy Idol. Yeah. He was sort of all over the spectrum in a time when he was sort of pigeonholed by his audience as only being a metal guitarist.
Yeah,
and I think sort of that the breadth of his career, could have been recognized with something,
Yeah, but I think that they probably didn't ask alternative artists.
I don't think they did.
And I don't know who you get. It would be cool to have gotten Nick Cave for example.
I also know that Fiona Apple doesn't do award shows anymore, and she had posted about this because she was feeling a bit of anxiety for large crowds.
Yeah.
So people were wondering where she was at, and
Yeah.
she had mentioned, there was anxiety issues, and she just wasn't going to do award shows anymore.
And that's fine.
Sure, absolutely.
But
I mean, as it happens, none of her categories were on televised anyway. So why go?
Even that in an intimate performance in a piano in her house is still interesting to see. You know?
Exactly.
Fiona Apple, Phoebe Bridgers, they certainly fall in the demographic you're trying to get, I was going to say something else, but I'll save it for later because I think you're going to go there later, Alan. But I think that, they may not have known who to get and who they could or couldn't get. That's the other thing.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with the current environment in which we live. I'm really surprised that they had as many performances in one place as they did. I think that with the limited audience, I think that the broadcast was really well done in that respect. But I think that I was surprised at the number of live performances that they had, as opposed to like remote performances, either live broadcast
or like the
pre-recorded
video things, which they did have.
There were a few,
And
the Silk Sonic thing was, I know the Silk Sonic segments were both pre-filmed.
Yeah,
I've heard that too.
I can fix the Grammys this way really easily. If you're honoring Grandmaster Flash, have Grandmaster Flash in his friggin' living room, mixing live on TV.
Right.
Because then the kids can see, first of all, it's Grandmaster Flash. Kids, actually grandparents. Second, they can
Didn't they have
see,
a house DJ a couple of years ago?
Yeah, they can talk about all the different ways the technology happened. Yeah, he played in we talked about this stuff. The one year we were in Atlanta for Dragon Con, Grandmaster Flash played, and it was amazing. It was amazing. So you've got those kind of moments too. I mean, there's so many opportunities they didn't, because they had, as many ways as they were hindered by the pandemic, they had ways they could have capitalized on it, and I think they got lazy. I think that not booking alternative artists is lazy. I just think they're lazy.
Sure. I think I agree with that. But at the same time, I think most of the performances that they had were ones that were one or two people, that were singing to a backing track. And it's easy to manage in a COVID, So thank you so much for your question, Suzanne. I fall on the side of, I think they weren't invited. I think that I think the show that we saw was the show that the producers intended. And I don't think that we saw the show because they invited alt and rock performers who said no.
Yeah.
My buddy Zach in Nashville says, have the Grammys become irrelevant? Well, that is a question that has been asked every year, every decade, no matter, when it happened, someone has asked that question. Is it a reflection of, the current music scene? Is it a reflection of music legacy? Is it too old? Is it not new enough? What do you think?
I think as an award, it still has quite a bit of prestige,
without a doubt.
And to kind of briefly touch the weekend kerfluffle. Touching the kerfluffle. We're on Facebook. Okay. But to go into that a little bit, that was enough for him to get upset about not being nominated for one. And, you don't question the legacy of, award shows where, you're already getting something, right? So MTV, American Music Awards, which is the dirty secret of those shows, they get a lot of people to show up by saying, yeah, we're going to give you something.
Right.
So, the Grammys still holds a bit of prestige in sort of that way, where it's not the VMAs and it's not the American Music Awards. It actually is supposed to mean something. And I don't know if it's irrelevant. Is it irrelevant because, going back to the rock thing, is the music you're not seeing represented, does that make it irrelevant?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if that's what that is. It feels like they're taking steps in terms of the award show and in terms of, what they give out to be a little more reflective of other things in the room besides white dudes, which
Sure.
is a thing we should probably be doing.
Mhm.
It's a thing that
Without a doubt.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to make the argument even in the case of The Weeknd that he deserved to be there, and so who do you cut? It's okay, Coldplay, but I know, low-hanging fruit. I'm sorry. I could have said Post Malone. Whatever. But it's important to those people. It's important to the smaller artists, because you have that argument about Drake and The Weeknd and Frank Ocean. I think a couple of years ago said he was going to boycott. And I think there's two separate arguments, because I think when Drake and the thing about Drake and Frank Ocean doing it, there was a clear representation problem when you looked at the nominees and when you looked at what else was out there. I think the difference being it's really hard to make that argument now, as The Weeknd is trying to do, because it kind of makes him sound like a jerk because he didn't get nominated.
Without a doubt.
Where it's not about representation, to be clear, it's not about representation. It's about you didn't get this.
Yeah.
And I think that's and it means something to smaller artists. It means enough to the people who don't sell millions of records these days. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the number of mega stars who sell millions of records are lower and lower. And it means enough to those people that I feel like it feels relevant to them.
And it still means something to Best New Artist.
Yes.
Even to be nominated, it means something to that.
And so I think in that respect, it does feel relevant, because I think, especially in the last couple of years, where they've sort of changed the rules and they've sort of brought more people in, a lot of women in the lead categories, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's you're getting, smaller under the line artists that maybe, don't have the ability to go somewhere else and do a thing. Right. Or, sell millions of records, or, get the shine that they maybe deserve, that maybe Drake and The Weeknd already have.
Right.
Which is a thing, which is the point of these things, which is, it's window dressing. It's, yay, look at the record industry. We're awesome. And this is why we're awesome. And that's what every award show is. Yeah. So I think in that sense, it's still relevant to those, smaller artists who win stuff now. I don't know if that makes it less relevant or not. Whether the biggies don't show up or rock bands don't show up. I don't know if that makes it more relevant or not, or less relevant.
Yeah. Zach, thank you so much for the question. That was awesome. I hope you're doing okay in Nashville. And Daniel wants to know, should Taylor Swift have won more categories, and why is the answer yes?
The national.
I honestly, though, if you look at the winner list, it's really impressive and it's really great. And the same reason I would say it was okay, I'm okay with The Weeknd not being there in the mix, is the same reason I'm okay with Taylor having won Album of the Year and the thing she won, and it spread. The wealth was spread, and lots of other people won in the pop categories and a couple of the other categories where Taylor and other people might have been, that had there been a stronger presence, or had there been a Weeknd in the mix, maybe those people wouldn't have won. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, but guys, we live in a world now where both Taylor Swift and Kanye West won a Grammy in the same year. So, and the world is still standing. That's the main point. So,
and nobody had to storm anybody else's stage or anything.
Oh, and Beyonce won. So Kanye, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift all won a Grammy in the same year, and the world still stands. So,
yeah.
Now, I do think that Folklore was a really. I think there's a major accomplishment to having written, produced, and released 2 complete albums within the COVID year. And I think, that deserves some recognition in itself, but I do think the Folklore was a really, really good album. I mean, it was a big change in direction for her. It was the material was a bit more mature than some of her previous stuff, and I think it was very deserving. I will say that having gone the entire length of that broadcast with no recognition of Taylor at all, I really didn't think she was going to get Album of the Year. So going into it, I thought she was a shoo-in. During it, I thought it's going to be Dua Lipa or whoever. I don't think it's going to be Taylor. And then she took it, and I was very surprised.
I think also part of it is because, the album made such a big impact.
Yeah.
The album as a full piece.
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
What we talk about.
Right.
Whereas, there weren't really, was there a hit single from Folklore? Was there anything that really stuck with people as an individual component?
On top 40, yeah, there was.
Yeah.
There was Cardigan was released, and Betty. And Betty actually did well on the pop charts and on the country charts. So it definitely hit a wider audience than some of her more recent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is that she worked with the National, who are probably one of the 4 or 5 best indie bands in the country right now. And that's a huge departure, having someone of her stature collaborate with someone else. She doesn't need to. But I think the big thing that we have to understand about her in particular is that there were people anticipating the new Taylor Swift album that had never wanted to hear a Taylor Swift album before. They were looking forward to it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, she didn't have to make an album during quarantine. She's got enough money. She's got enough cred. She didn't need to do this. And in many ways, putting out this album at this time is a pretty big career risk, right?
Right.
Especially during a pandemic when everyone's going to notice.
And this is
because there were a lot of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there were a lot of major albums that flew by and no one blinked during quarantine because nobody could tour it, and that's a concern.
Right.
But I think also for Taylor, this is a year where she's also launching this project to completely re-record her first 5 albums because her record label has got her sort of like locked down in a contract thing.
That's been going on for a while.
It has been, but she's just started the recording process this year. So she's released 2 new albums, plus has re-recorded one of her previous albums.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massive amount of work in 1 year.
Yeah. That's kind of the new...
not being able to tour certainly gives you more time to do those kind of things.
I think, and people were talking about she's now won as many Album of the Year Grammys as Stevie Wonder.
She's won it 3 times. Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra, and one other person have all won 3 times. So she's in this really elite category.
And I think
she's got a record of her own.
And I think the comparison is she's in that Stevie Wonder period.
Yeah.
She's already got 2 of those records. She's already got 2 of those records that have in this period. I don't think you can count the re-recording, but it's one of those things where she's doing a lot, and if she puts another original out in that mix, then I think the anticipation is going to be outside of her own circle is going to be big.
Now, thank you, Daniel, for the question. He says, "Thanks, guys. Just wanted to hear 3 dudes talk about Taylor Swift." So there you go.
You got your wish.
Tuffley and I talked about Taylor
Wish
Swift.
granted.
Patrick Anderson says, of the winners who didn't perform last night, who would you have loved to seen perform? And I have to step away for just a second. You guys talk about it, and I'll be right back.
So, Fiona Apple, obviously, and we discussed this already.
I think Fiona Apple
reasons
is
why.
I think Fiona Apple's mine. Because she was due. With Fiona Apple being sort of out of the consciousness of the world for a while.
Yeah.
And then coming back, and that record is still, you can still listen to it and it still sounds fresh. So I think that's my answer.
So Fiona Apple, I think. I also would have liked to have seen morbid curiosity. I would have liked to have seen the Strokes, see if they can pull together a live performance that doesn't suck.
It would have been interesting. Yeah. I really, I know it's not nominated, but
I'm amazed that they actually won. That's incredible.
there's a well, there's a there's a lot of people that still wear shiny shoots and drink at posh vodka bars, and so they will root for them to win.
Yeah, and I'm not bagging on the Strokes. Good for them.
The thing is that first Strokes record is so amazing, and then the first two are really good, and then it just sucks, and then they put out this one that you're like, really, this is the Strokes, But they should have played. It would have been interesting, but I'm not even sure they can put them in the same room. I'm gonna put a weird twist on all of this for Alan because it's not quite in the wheelhouse of what he wanted to ask.
I'm open to anything.
It never would have happened, and if it would have happened, hell would probably have frozen over. But I would have lost my mind if we saw Talking Heads play.
Because that would have been interesting. But at least David Byrne's band, because the concert film was nominated, and didn't win, but that show was phenomenal.
Yeah,
and to see that happen would have been really nice.
Seeing that show live and then seeing it on the video thing, you don't lose any of the feeling that you get seeing it, which is great. And that would have been a really cool thing to do too. Although in a pandemic, I'm not sure that show can get pulled off.
Well, that is true. That is true.
Also, in a pandemic, and I know she actually did perform, but I would have liked seeing Billie Eilish and the orchestra and Johnny Marr for No Time to Die.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I just would like to see Johnny Marr.
Johnny Marr, yeah. Basically Johnny Marr, really, but,
Do a Lipa with Johnny Marr, or something,
Ooh.
Or Taylor Swift with Johnny Marr.
So anybody with Johnny Marr, right?
Anybody with Johnny Marr, really?
Pretty much. There's
we already did Modest Mouse, so
Well, yeah, that's the only thing of his I don't love. So
I'll play with anybody.
The other thing too, though, is the amount of they had so. I mean, it was so heavy with soul and R&B and hip hop. It really would have been nice to put some jazz in there. Just saying.
True. But
Chick Corea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock.
So, of the performances that we did see, what were the standouts for you guys? None, apparently. Haim was really good.
Yeah.
Haim, I know we just kind of knocked the R&B groups, but the Anderson .Paak Bruno Mars thing, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by that. But of course, that's the Bruno Mars throwback thing.
Yeah,
which can get annoying, but it's still that actually feels better than him aping the Police. So, because I've seen the guy live and he can do a lot, and he's a great instrumental guy. But the Silk Sonic thing, I'm really curious about that album. Yeah, and the Little Richard tribute was just
the Little Richard tribute was really enjoyable. They did a phenomenal job with that.
Yeah. I have to say though that the Silk Sonic was the best CeeLo Green record that CeeLo Green ever made.
Good point.
Yeah, the little bit again. I'm not sure that the Little Richard. It was good. You can't do it. There's no way you can do it in a pandemic year. But you've got Jerry Lee left. Put him in the Little Richard thing somehow.
Yeah,
I mean, he's playing 1 or 2 shows a year,
Yeah. Good point.
Put Janelle Monáe in it, But I don't know how no matter what they do to Little Richard, somebody's not gonna be happy. So that guy's me. But I did like future. I like the future nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think I was gonna like, and I really liked the Dua Lipa. Is it Lipa or Lipa?
Lipa, yeah.
Lipa. I don't listen to people.
British
on the radio.
people will say it differently anyway. It's fine.
And I don't listen to people on real radio sort of talk and say things, because but yeah, I was really impressed with that, just in terms of not necessarily of the performance, but the fact that you could do from a production standpoint of transferring it from a record to a live thing. Yeah. Because that is the one danger of doing this, is that,
And she did a whole internet concert thing that was great.
Yeah.
She did a whole internet concert thing that was great. So, and it was weird when she went on Saturday Night Live, people were underwhelmed because it was just her and very minimal, sparse stuff. And not like the visual concert experience they'd gotten from the internet thing. So
Yeah.
it's nice where she did this performance that kind of is a little bit of both, but it's still not. It still wasn't that, but it was still very interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that aside from Haim, which I really enjoyed them a lot, and I'm surprised how much I enjoyed them, because I've never been a big Haim fan, and I've seen them perform in a couple of places here and there. Yeah, they can. They really can. Yeah. And so my opinion is starting to sway a little bit. So thank you, Grammys, for that. I thought that the sort of like little medley of country ladies was really nice.
Yeah.
It was it was probably the livest thing that we had.
It's not in my wheelhouse, but Harry Styles, man, I have no idea what that kid's on, and I'm not a big One Direction fan, but that kid has got
that boy can perform.
Lead singer, frontman, sort of Michael Hutchins vibes.
Yeah,
that was kind of crazy.
That was kind of my introduction to him too. I mean, I'd heard the single and a couple things.
Yeah.
And every time I hear his solo records, I'm like, wait a minute, that's him. Even though I know it, it's sort of,
and that's
like
exactly what he's after, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I'm still not going to run and buy any of his records, but I think it was one of those defining moments where people are suddenly going to pay attention to him in what we thought of Harry Styles going in. And what we thought of Harry Styles coming out, Feather Boa aside, is completely different.
Thank you so much for your
Feather Boa got an agent afterwards.
I also thought that one thing that I expected to get a whole lot of talk today, and I haven't really heard any, I'm sure there's some somewhere, was the Lil Baby segment, where he basically recreated some of the events that led up to the Black Lives Matter movement this year. And the whole thing opened with a complete recreation of the incident that happened in Atlanta, where the guy was sleeping in a car outside of a Wendy's, and the cops came and he ran and they shot and he died. And then people burned the damn Wendy's down. And I mean, recreated that in a truncated way, but in detail. And I was shocked by that. And I thought that made an enormous impact. And it was, I'm sure a lot of people saw that on the news the next day, but at least for us in Atlanta, we watched that shit happen live on television. And I mean, it was surreal to see that recreated in such detail in that performance. That was crazy. But I thought it was a really good performance, and it was incredible. So,
and that was one of the video segments, right?
I don't know. I think it looked like it, but the way that Trevor introduced it, and by the way, I thought Trevor Noah was a fantastic host. The way he introduced it, it sounded like it was happening like in the lot right outside where they were. So I think it was staged and broadcast in, but done on the spot, I think. So I just thought that was incredible.
I'll second it. I'm always a big fan of the comedians as hosts instead of the artists as hosts, because not many people can pull it off. I think LL was good a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But sometimes they can be a little stiff.
Sure.
And even comedians making bad puns at the rapid clip that they have to,
right,
is still better than Alicia Keys trying to read copy.
Agreed.
On a monitor.
Yeah. Right.
So because Alicia Keys can't ad lib. She can't ad lib in the moment, to be fair. But there's things the comedians do to work a script that obviously people reading the teleprompter usually don't. So,
and he had a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's probably the worst slot to get, and give him, hats off for not getting Ryan Seacrest. Thank you.
I mean, Jules Holland was there and available, and they were doing his show anyway, so they could have gotten him. But
America would like to thank you for not using Ryan Seacrest. We're sorry about We're sorry about the last 4 years. So as an appeasement, we're wheeling out Ryan Seacrest in a closet, and you don't have to see him. So I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Well, you have to wheel him out in a closet because he's never come out of it.
Oh,
sorry.
Wow.
No intentional shade on the Seacrest.
Hypothetical.
Ryan Seacrest, if you're listening,
Allegedly.
Alan is coming for you.
Yeah, parallel universe. in a parallel universe. Yeah.
Right.
No, I thought, I saw that and I'm like, at first I kind of, because I recorded it and watched it after because I was working on some stuff. And I had to go back. I'm like, is this part of the, and so it did, it did what it was supposed to do to white America, where it made us, those of us who kind of get it anyway, we're like, wait a minute, is this part of the show? What is this?
Yeah.
And the rest of the people, I can't, so that's kind of like, okay, I get it's part of the show.
I think a better
But
question
then
is,
other people were like, oh my God, why, so you could totally tell that it had some sort of resonating effect.
Right. Right.
And, I don't think this is necessarily the forum of, do award shows have politics, but yes, they do. All of them do.
Yeah, of course.
And at this point, American contemporary music of this moment, much like American music of the 60s, is tied up in the social movements that are going on.
Oh, sure.
Actually,
look at Black Parade.
Yeah.
The Beyonce song. I mean,
yeah.
And actually, the Grammy tribute special, instead of an artist this year, they're doing like protest songs.
Yes, yes, which I think is really neat.
Interesting.
Yeah, the little preview they showed of it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. So,
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Rob. There was something that you were going to bring up a little bit ago.
Oh, that was the Talking Heads thing. They did these like sort of lifetime achievement things, and they were kind of hollow. And I think it's because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a really good reason why it feels that way. Just to be honest, because the last time an award show did a tribute for an artist and they got an honorary award, that artist kind of passed a couple of days later because he went to the award show. So
yeah, but no,
let's not put Dolly Parton on a plane right now, okay?
Don't you know?
Do that.
She's got her vaccine though, so
she's got her own. But she's got her own plane. She has people.
But since the CMAs allegedly killed Charlie Pride, that's not a thing that people want to do. Let's just be honest.
Let's be fair. They probably did.
I said allegedly.
I'm just saying. But I think I know they can't. But I forgot how long it had been. Like Salt and Pepper's been around for that long. I felt really. That was my old man moment. And it would have been nice in a year when they're trying to honor women in diversity and Salt and Pepper. I didn't think about this in any great extent until this particular moment. How pioneering they were. They played a an AIDS event charity in DC, and they were the only hip hop band on the bill years ago in the 90s. And they've always been kind of activists, and they've always made records, but they never seem to have gotten their due. So it would have been nice to kind of see something, or even and those award things. If you want to get Talking Heads,
didn't they have a performance at the American Music Awards when
they might have, but they might have, but you could still do. It would have been nice in an age of digital technology. You can put people in separate rooms and have them play. So even if they got all the people in Talking Heads in separate rooms, the fact that David Byrne is not physically in the room with the people that wrote the book about him that he's not going to like. You can at least fake it, right?
Fred Armisen's available if they can't get David Byrne.
Apparently. There you go.
and the ego is just as big. Allegedly.
There you go.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff they could have done, but at the same time, we don't produce the show, so we don't know what they tried and what they didn't get.
That's true. That's true.
Although speaking of female rappers, MC Lyte announced. MC Lyte was announcing.
Oh, was that her?
Yeah, it was her.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, she was the announcer for last night's ceremony.
One of the things that I really, really enjoyed that they did last night, which I think is one of the coolest and smartest things that they did, was that they had little segments highlighting music venues across the country.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so neat to see, some of these places and how they've been hit by the pandemic and they only featured ones that are still in business, because there are a lot of them that aren't still in business. A couple of them here in Atlanta have closed, and it just breaks my heart. But I thought that was really, really neat. The only thing about that was it seemed so incongruous in a way, because 90% of the performances that we saw are things that would never have been performed in any of those clubs. It seemed like they were seemed like the live performances and the club owners came from two different worlds, completely different worlds. And I just thought that was a weird mix, but I'm really, really glad that they highlighted it.
I'm glad they highlighted it. I don't know how they can do it without it being incongruous.
I know.
Well,
they did have at least, the country ladies perform, and they had a country club. So, there was that one little bit of connection.
I mean, there should be a part of America that's weeping that the Ryman and the Apollo are dark. I mean,
Sure.
those two buildings alone. And I think, I would have liked some context about the venues for people, because there are people that I've worked with, in the last 4 or 5 years, where I talk about, James Brown at the Apollo. They're like, what's the Apollo? You have to sort of have to explain all this. And
I got to say, one of my favorite moments of the entire night was the guy who runs the Apollo talking his James Brown story from when he was young, and how when he was just like an intern, and he was, interacting with James Brown, and James Brown says, "How you doing in school?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing okay." He said, "Go get your report card." And comes back, and James Brown says, "You can't do anything at the Apollo until you get your grades up." What an amazing story.
Yeah.
I mean, to have been around that much music history, first of all, and to have that music history tell you do better in school. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought those were really cool segments.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really enjoyed was the short, sort of like bio films that they did on the nominees for Record of the Year or Song of the Year, whichever one it was. And they were all really well produced, and all had a completely different tone and style to them. And I thought that was a really neat approach.
Was that kind of a compromise for not everybody performing? Was that?
I think so.
A compromise on that?
I think so.
I think so, but I also think it was, hi, you're watching the Grammys and you don't know who the hell any of these people are. I think it was some of that too.
Well, I think there's also some of that too, and I think
which is nice. It's a great gateway.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, to get off on a tangent on why people don't watch award shows now. It used to be where people at least seen 3 of the films nominated for Best Picture, other than critics. Sorry, Rob.
I've only seen 4 this
exactly.
year.
And it's the thing of people not being familiar with the people who are nominated in the big categories. Now, what would have helped with those if you had put longer versions of those 8 films on the web as a run-up to the awards? That way you make people familiar with.
They made the longer version available after the broadcast.
Yeah, they did.
Which is nice. I mean, I'm glad they at least did that. So if there was one that you were intrigued by, you could go and watch a longer piece.
Yeah.
I like
that idea. I like that idea.
So,
I just wish they had done it beforehand so that people were more familiar with, if not the album, but the artist.
Yeah, like a week beforehand.
They can go somewhere and, check out the album.
Right.
And then, I like this and I don't like this. And why is Taylor Swift recording with the National, and who are the National? So, that sort of thing. But that's a nice idea. I like that idea. I also like the in the round concept. Again,
was really cool.
The later concept, and I keep questioning why, and I'm wondering if CBS is sort of short piloting a later variant.
Oh,
maybe?
That's interesting.
CBS?
If they were smart.
Maybe. If they were smart, they would do that. They would get James Corden and his production team on that.
Yeah.
Or you could just pay me and Tuffley.
There you go.
To complain about music.
No, nobody wants to see that now.
All right. We've got a little bit of time left for viewers that are watching. If you have any additional questions, just drop them in the comments section below, and we will get to them. What are some things that we haven't covered yet? Is there a song or artist or something that we haven't mentioned that should get mentioned?
Brittany Howard for the win.
Brittany Howard, absolutely.
Talk about rock.
Yeah.
Talk about lots of things. But
Yeah, really.
Brittany freaking Howard for the win.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I want, but I'm not going to get?
Huh.
I'm not going to get a duets record with Brittany Howard and Dolly Parton.
You might. I mean, she did the Barry Gibb thing.
I know, but that's different.
Which,
to be fair,
which, by the way, folks, you're gonna Grammys. You're gonna get that next year. By the way, you're gonna let's just say the Barry Gibb thing is gonna probably happen.
Yeah. If he makes it that long.
Oh, stop.
Well, they're dropping it like every 2 years, so I mean,
stop.
No one gets much heaven no more.
Sorry, that was good.
So anyway, Brittany Howard. I was familiar with Brittany Howard, but I wasn't super familiar with Brittany Howard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, okay, great voice, great presence, great
Mm-hmm.
style. I don't always love necessarily the music, but this somehow transcended all of that.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's the year. I don't know if it's, but again, I'm always looking for something new. I want to come out of the Grammys and look at people I may know in a different light or.
She's really gotten a lot of confidence as a performer in the cycle for this album. In the cycle for Jamie, she's gotten really, really much more confident than I believe she was allowed to be in Alabama Shakes.
That might be it. It just seems much more.
She's a much more confident performer than she was, because she was really nervous and sort of tentative sometimes with Alabama Shakes, and you kind of wonder. But being freed of having to kind of fit that format, I think, sort of helps her. So I think just being able to do whatever the hell you want on the record,
I think
is freeing.
I think what I'm trying to say is, she looked very comfortable in her own skin.
Absolutely.
Yes. And when I saw Alabama Shakes, I think it was the Grammys a couple of years ago, or maybe it was one of the other ones. It was off, and I can't, but it's an award show, so you don't think much about it. But then when you see her later, and I think that, sort of as we're starting to see Taylor Swift at the apex of her game right now. There you go, Daniel. We mentioned her again.
She's in her Stevie Wonder Imperial phase, folks.
She's in her Imperial phase.
Taylor Swift.
But I think we're starting to.
Put that in flashing graphic Imperial phase.
I think we're going to see. I think we're seeing somebody that this is just the beginning of like fulfilling potential and wanting to be bold and daring and uncompromising. And I think that's what we're going to get.
Interesting. There was a couple of moments last night that I really enjoyed, with sort of like a deference to a sort of a senior artist. I'm not like, I'm still like not really too familiar with the Stallion train. Me and Megan aren't like, I'm not a ride or die for Megan yet, but there were a couple of moments that I thought were really, really sweet. And one of them was Beyonce coming up on stage with her to accept the award. And she just sort of like had a geek out moment of, I've worked with Beyonce. And conversely, when Billie Eilish, or as Dionne Warwick says, William Eyelash, accepted her award, she clearly thought that Megan was going to win. And her whole speech was, Megan, you're amazing, and this should be your award. And Megan just sat there and just sort of like, got all embarrassed over and I just thought both of those moments were so sweet.
And I think one of the acceptance speeches Billie had last year was also her gushing about Lizzo.
Yeah.
During her sleep last year, she talked a lot about Lizzo. So,
and I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, whichever year it was. Beyonce was up for Lemonade, and the British lady, what's her name? 25. Adele won the award, and just like Billie, Adele clearly thought that Beyonce was going to win that award and should have won that award. And her acceptance
If I
speech was
remember the internet
Adele.
that year, so did everyone else.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the other thing, though, too, and this is kind of an emphasis, it's a cultural difference.
Yeah.
The British have always had a much more rich appreciation for America's musical tradition past with regards to soul and blues music.
Absolutely.
And that is the result of that. You know?
Absolutely.
But those moments seemed really genuine, and that's what I like with these shows is when they do these sort of like really genuine moments of like.
Agreed.
I think that makes it all. You kind of forget everything, you know.
Exactly.
It's nice to see that artists geek out still. Right.
Right.
They have their geek moments, and it's cool. I mean, we keep seeing Billie Eilish do it because we forget she's still a kid. And I mean, that's the crazy thing. You forget that she's a kid when you get into the machinery. But she is still a kid, theoretically. But she geeks out, and people who recorded things. Megan probably wasn't in the room with Beyonce when that vocal happened on
That's
Savage.
what I was wondering, that same thing. I'm sure that they did their part separately and emailed them in.
And I think it shouldn't go without saying, Megan in doing the Marilyn Monroe dress is the Marilyn Monroe / Madonna dress is kind of on point.
Yeah.
I think that's trying to make a statement, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've got one last comment that just snuck in under the wire. Grammy used bits.
BTS.
Boys to get views. Interesting.
Yeah, but everybody does.
But if that's the case, the ratings.
Everybody does. Cratered. I mean, really, they could have just canceled the Grammys and just put on a BTS Black show, and
I mean that
would have gotten triple the ratings.
Exactly
so,
right. Exactly right. Yeah. Plus, they were saved for so late in the broadcast. Maybe they.
That's what they used to do. Remember, back in the back when we were kids, these magical Grammys that people say they like to remember, which didn't have any of our crap in it. That they would save the band you came to see.
Absolutely.
Until the end.
Because you got to keep those viewers for the last half hour of the 4-hour broadcast.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you came to see Arcade Fire and or Nine Inch Nails, they played the airline commercial during it, so you didn't really get that. But
and I think
there's your Grammy memories of the past.
Yeah. And I can tell you a story about that later, Tuffley. So BTS is one of those moments too where they could have put another artist with them and really could have made it something.
Yeah, BTS.
It's been that the last couple of years, though.
BTS
been that the last couple of years, though.
But still, you can always do it. They're one of those.
But BTS was in Korea. They broadcast from Korea, so it would have been hard to pair them up with another artist.
Well,
unless it's another Korean artist.
It's at some point.
Yeah.
At some point, if Rob
Billie Eilish goes into the Matrix.
If Rob runs the Grammys, I put Harry Styles with a BTS and see what happens.
That would have been good. That would have been a show right there.
You know what? I don't want to expose boy band PTSD to Harry, so I think
Harry. I think
he doesn't need that.
I think he's just fine.
All right, y'all. We're right at an hour, so I think we're gonna say our goodbyes. And thank you both for joining me. This was kind of a last minute throw together, and I wasn't planning on anybody like jumping in and saying, "Hey, I'll do your thing with you." And I'm so glad that you did. I really enjoyed our discussion. And
the first show as planned.
I know. So is there anything that you would like to say before we say our goodbyes? Anything that you want to promote or tell people where to find you?
I have, as Rob alluded to, I have many playlists. Some of them are called Randomizer, and some of them come out like every 2 weeks or so when new music happens. So I try to throw that out.
And this is Spotify, right?
And this is
or
Spotify.
Other places. Okay.
This is Spotify because I can't afford Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music. Sorry. So you just get one.
There you go.
You just get the one. I'm not a media empire yet. I can't afford those things.
Yeah, same here. I focus on the Spotify because I don't have the ability to do all three. But
And you can find me on Twitter at the highly creative at Tuffley.
Rob?
I, like Tuffley, can be found as part of the double act that we have on neatcoffee.com, where we are the Statler and Waldorf of music. And
and we steal JJ's recommendations.
Yeah, or our own. Yeah. It is really interesting how Tuffley and I will either wear the same shirt or like the same records at the same point in space and time. And I actually have that shirt, Alan, which is really frightening. So
we are currently in different locations, I'll point out.
Yeah.
This is not the same house.
I do a radio show on KDHX.
Stop that now.
I do a radio show on KDHX. It's streaming online. You can listen to it. And then there's a Spotify page for me where I do every month an archive. Not an archive. What do you call it? What did Tuffley call? Oh, a Spotify playlist. That's it. Jesus.
The kids call them playlists, Rob.
It's vaccine brain. Anyway, I do a playlist every month too, not as often as Tuffley, but I do a playlist of like lots of new music that's out. Some of it you've heard, some of it you haven't, some of it's odd and weird. So there's that. And then I'm at, Rob Levy on Twitter, and then Juxtaposition's got a Twitter and a Facebook page, and I'm on Facebook and Insta, as the kids say. And I have a blog.
Get you to do weird TikTok videos any day now.
No. No one. I don't even have a face for radio. I would have a face for TikTok.
You and Dion, man. You and Dion.
Like
Nice.
Celine Dion or Dion the old singer or
Warwick.
Oh God. I have another story about her.
She's wanting to do TikToks with everybody.
I have a whole other story about her too. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. So anyway,
Sorry.
I'm on the Neat Coffee podcast as well. And yeah. So.
All right. My name is Alan. I will be back Sunday night at 9:00 for the first of our regular shows. We'll be talking a little bit of music news, assuming that there is some between now and then, and pulling 5 random albums from my collection and just talking about them. And I may have a guest with me. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Hey, Alan.
Hey.
What is this children's book that you've written about?
Well,
it's kind of music related. What is that all about?
Well, you can find me at cosmicpress.com, KOZMIC press.com. I've got a children's book called Lucy Can't Dance, and it's about a shy little girl who loves dancing but is too shy to dance with her friends, and she learns to develop her own dance and just let herself be free and enjoy the freedom of music and dance. So it is called Lucy Can't Dance. You can get it on Amazon. I appreciate it if you buy a copy. If you do, review it on Amazon. And I've got a bunch of Doctor Who books and all kinds of things on my press. So thank you guys very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really had a great time, and I hope you did too.
Yeah.
And I will have you both on again at some point. So everybody take care. Have a great night and be good to each other and spread love. And we will see you Sunday night. Bye.